Welcome back to the Retirement Compass Radio Show. I'm Tim Kilhonick alongside Eli Mardick and Jeff Go from our Omaha and Kearney offices. You're still in Kearney, right, Jeff?
Yes.
I couldn't remember if you'd moved to Brule or not. We were talking about that office. So I want to pose a question to the folks that are watching or listening. Have you ever gone and sat down? Let's just assume that you went to a nice dinner event that was put on by a financial professional, and they bought you a nice steak, which is wonderful and delicious. Everybody likes steak. Well, most people, Nebraskans for the most part, like steak, I think. Jeff, do you still get what is called mystery meat, the Beyond Meat burgers? Is that you were on that kick for a while. I couldn't remember if you were still doing that. Is that crushed up garbanzo beans? I think is what that is. But
yeah, I'm very adventurous with my food, Tim.
Like a hummus burger.
I like hummus.
Chickpeas are great.
I'd try that.
If you've ever sat down with a financial advisor, though, here's usually how it plays out. So let me ask you if this rings a bell to anybody. You go in, you sit down, and they ask a few questions, and ultimately where the conversation leads to, whether it be in the first meet or the second, is, well, here's what we found. It looks like, you've got these mutual funds here, and over the last few years, you've been averaging about a 7.5%, 8% return, which is pretty darn good. However, we've been in this bull market. So had you been with us, we would have got 8.5% to 9%. So to fix your plan, so all your cares, your worries go away, and you'll have no cares as far as your finances go anymore, because you'll know that you're in great hands. You just got to move your money over here, do this rollover, and everything is hunky dory. The problem with that is the finance side, when it comes to investments, the investments are the thing that we have the least amount of control over, because things can happen. Conflicts, geopolitical issues, economic cycles, capital market changes, so many variables to take into consideration. And there's a lot that you can't do to change that. You can put yourself in the best position possible, but if you're a surfer and you're on your board out there and you're just waiting for the wave, sometimes the wave just doesn't come and you can't generate it on your own. So what can you do? What can you do objectively to put yourself in the most optimal position possible that doesn't involve, using size of a company, for example, market cap as a strategy? So I want to pose a question, Eli, to you first. If somebody's listening out there and they said, okay, Eli, so if we met for coffee, what is the first thing that you would look at? What would the first question be that you would ask?
Yeah, I think the first thing that I'd look at is, well, one, we could look at investments. That's what everyone's going to do. And we want to look at everything all together. But I think the big thing to allude to the point you just made, Tim, is you want to look at the things that we actually can control, that have real tangible outcomes. One of the first things that I want to look at is the taxable nature of everyone's assets. A lot of folks that I meet with have done everything right. They read all the right magazines. They went to the right financial websites. They saved 15%. They didn't touch their retirement accounts. They got the max match. They did everything right, except nobody told them that when they did this, that every dollar that would come out of that tax-deferred account would be taxed on the way out.
Yeah.
And that's, they weren't aware of that. It wasn't made clear to them, but that was the deal, right? You get to use this money now, and then later when it comes out, you're going to pay tax on all that.
Yeah.
And later, for a lot of these folks, is now.
Yeah.
It's now arrived, and they don't really realize this. And no one's ever told them, well, this is actually what your situation looks like in terms of required minimum distributions. And so the first thing I'd want to look at is, when it's harvest time, you've been essentially a farmer, right? You planted the seeds in your 401k, you've been watering them, you've been doing everything that you were supposed to do, and now it's harvest time. And the IRS is going to show up with a truck.
Yeah.
And they will show up. There's no way a truck isn't showing up.
Yep.
But it's a matter of how big is that truck?
Exactly.
That's the one thing we can control. And if we do things right and start to plan in the right way and take advantage of the right windows, because these windows have closing gaps. If we do that right, well, hopefully they're showing up with a little, those little 3-wheeled cars you see in India that have a tiny little
tuk.
Yeah, exactly. One of those, or a VW Bug, and that is their chunk, right? Because they're going to take their share versus showing up with a bunch of flatbeds or whatever,
right,
and taking a huge chunk of that harvest. So that's probably one of the number one things, because you know this. You're a fan of Ed Slott. his company came out, did a study. The biggest expense for most people in retirement is taxes.
Yeah.
It's not inflation. It's not healthcare.
Right.
It's taxes. And this is verified by a study. And so that's usually the number one thing. But there's, of course, you want to look at everything else, but investments is one of those things. That's 20% of the conversation.
Yep.
You know?
Well, the reality is a lot of people, they get to retirement and maybe they've never worked with a financial advisor and they think to themselves, like, I've done it I've gotten this far. Like, why do I need one now? And a lot of times what we see is we don't see anything that's broken when people come in. We see a successful retirement that's just gotten a lot more complicated because, again, the reason you're hiring somebody like a Stonebridge advisor isn't to pick to be a hero stock picker, right? It's not to say, oh, we're going to sell all this and buy this. I think if you look at the last 10 years of large cap growth fund managers, roughly 7% of them, have outperformed their benchmarks. 93% have failed in that. If that's the benchmark, if that's the litmus test, is did you beat your benchmark? 93% of the money managers that have plaques on the wall from Wharton and MIT and Harvard haven't done it. They haven't. So what are you hiring somebody for? It's because you have rules risk, whether it's legislative risk or other rules. When are my RMDs due? How do I mitigate my RMDs? What's the taxation of that? How does that impact all the other types of income I have? How much of my Social Security is going to become taxable? These are the things that get so complex once you enter that distribution phase. You've climbed the mountain. That's great. And a lot of advisors specialize in that accumulation phase. Not very many specialize in the distribution phase. And so, like, how do you tell? You can ask them, one, but two, if when you ask tax questions, they say, talk to your CPA, that should be your first clue that, hey, this probably isn't somebody who specializes in this distribution phase of my life. I'm coming to the harbor. I probably need somebody who's more of a harbor captain pilot that can navigate these new risks and threats to my retirement security.
100%. Yeah. It actually just reminded me for a lot of folks. I mean, if the goal is just to match what the market does, just invest in the market. Right. That's the easy part. You can invest in VOO or SPY. And if that's all you want, what's the point of anything else? Right. The real value of a financial plan is the coordination and looking at all these other things, and not just what you earn, but what you get to keep of it.
Yep.
So,
yeah. Go ahead, Jeff.
If you think about, Tim's analogy of, we've climbed the mountain, we've put money in, we're at the top of the mountain, and we decide once we get to the top, I'm going to put a blindfold on. I don't know the way down, and there's these cliffs on all sides. You've got the cliffs of paying too much in taxes. You've got the cliffs of paying too much for healthcare, the market risk. There's all of these different risks. I want to leave money to my kids, and instead I'm leaving a pile of money to the IRS. All of these cliffs, but instead of having a plan, we put this blindfold on, and we're hoping that we miss the cliff. And we don't know what that looks like for you. Everybody's cliff is a little bit different. Some are bigger than others. But what a plan does, it gives you the path, someone to guide you down the other side of the mountain, because you're coming down. It's just a matter of how do we miss these major cliffs that are ahead of you.
I mentioned earlier, folks, that the retirement compass, it really is a process. It's a system, if you will. It identifies the 5 key areas of planning: income, investment, tax, healthcare, and legacy. And the reason that it identifies all 5 of those is because a decision in one area can have a material impact on prior decisions that were made in another area. And if you're like a lot of people we talk to, you've been feeling a little bit like an air traffic controller when it comes to your retirement. You're trying to coordinate all 5 of those areas, but you don't have any experience or expertise. You only get to retire once, and that wasn't what you signed up for. That wasn't your career. Nobody should really have to go through this phase of retirement alone. And at the end of the day, what this process is, again, I call it a giant filter, but I think what you care about is what it means. What it means is when you leave our office, you'll know that all 5 key areas of your plan are coordinated together so that everything's working in the same direction. Everybody's rowing the boat in the same direction towards your ultimate goals. So whatever that looks like for you, whether it's spending time with grandkids, whether it's taking your family to the beach, really the best place to spend your money is with the intersection between the experiences you've always dreamed of and the people that you love and care about. And that's our job, to make sure that you're spending money with purpose, with confidence, so you can enjoy your retirement the way that you've always dreamed. 888-260-0926 is the number. Again, don't delay. Don't let that Parkinson's syndrome kick in and let another 6 months or year go by and thinking I should have picked up the phone. Just do it now. 888-260-0926. And one of our experienced advisors is looking forward to talking to you soon.